My name is Joel Mumo. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm joining you from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a researcher at Busara Center for Behavioral Economics, which is a nonprofit that applies behavioral science methods in pursuit of poverty alleviation in the global south. I'm happy to be to give this talk today and discuss about like some of the things that we're doing at Busara to ensure that the kind of research that is done in the global south, any development research, is achieving its goal of like alleviating poverty and empowering people to make their lives better. I've been working in the development space for the last 7 years or so. And during these 7 years, I've interacted with researchers from all backgrounds as well as participants. And by participants, I mean like the people we seek to serve in the global south. And my interaction with these two groups of people got me thinking about how research is conducted in the global south, the poverty alleviation kind of research, especially with the rise of experimental methods in social science research. You know, like experimentation started in medical research and is slowly gaining traction within the social science circles. And these are burst in popularity. It got me thinking about like how we can adopt these methods in a good way. And today I'll be speaking about, or I'll be reflecting about some of the challenges that I've seen while working in this space. I'll also discuss some of the solutions that have been suggested to address these challenges, as well as like point out some gaps that I think exist, and discuss about some of the things that some of the ways that we think we can adopt to ensure that like, we fill some of these gaps and ensure that like development research is meaningful and it achieves its purpose of alleviating poverty and empowering people. So the biggest challenge facing development research right now, especially experimental development research, is information asymmetry and power imbalances. That is, in recent debates, sharp critiques have arisen of power imbalances in development research. And these power imbalances exist both in the generation of knowledge. Like for example, we have this meta-analysis that was done by Amarante and this group of researchers, which found that we have a lot of underrepresentation of global South scholars in generating knowledge about the global South. And most importantly, and what we'll cover today, is the power imbalances that exist between researchers or people implementing development projects and participants, or the people we seek to serve. And more so in experimental research, researchers typically have more information than participants, and they decide what information to share. And you know, like that could be motivated by maybe study design or whichever reason that the researcher feels is important in generating knowledge. And these kind of imbalances have brought about a lot of problems. I've worked on a couple of projects, let me say experimental projects, where researchers make decisions about like what's best for the design to make the study more robust, and all those arguments that come about when implementing an experimental research. And while the motivation behind them is usually good, and the researchers usually have like a good reason as to why they make certain decisions, this has led to a lot of problems sometimes, where maybe due to the study design, the researcher decides to withhold certain information about the study for the fear of biasing the results. And from the participants' perspective, this hasn't always worked great. Sometimes participants are like always excited at the beginning of the study. They're feeling very interested and they are willing to participate. But down the line, as we continue implementing research protocols, then sort of problems starts to arise because participants come across maybe study procedures that weren't made clear at the beginning. Like people, like, okay, you told us this study is about, we are doing this study to understand this problem and try to come up with a policy. But people, like most often, the conversation ends at that point. They don't even go to the specifics about whether some of the questions would be sensitive or such kind of things. And these, from my experience, has brought us problems and caused a lot of friction between researchers and participants, where the researcher wants to generate knowledge to help fight poverty. But by the end of it all, sometimes they leave the participants worse off than they found them because probably one of the questionnaire had like sensitive questions, like really personal questions that participants are not aware of, and or some of the interventions were a little bit intrusive and participants were not aware is at the beginning as they try to register to participate in studies, and that has brought a lot of problems because we cannot hope to do good or alleviate poverty if in the first place we are doing more harm. Like you're interacting with the participants and you're leaving them like feeling maybe stress or feeling less empowered or feeling less about themselves, even the language that we sometimes is used out there, and calling people poor or like using terms like subjects, sometimes leaves participants questioning their worth, and that's the kind of thing that we are trying to come up with solutions for, to ensure that we can do good research without being disrespectful to the people that we're interacting with, the people we hope to serve. So this raises a fundamental question, like how can researchers carry out like robust studies, generate knowledge on poverty alleviation without being disrespectful? And some suggestions have been brought forth, and some of these solutions, while good, like for example, we have solutions like expert risk benefit analysis, where a study should be allowed to go ahead, or a study is deemed to be good and doing more good if the benefits outweigh and the risks involved. We also have conversations around having extended consent procedures, like for example, spending more time with participants, trying to explain the study procedures, what is coming ahead. If you have any sensitive questions, trying to talk to them and preparing them psychologically of the impending procedures that are coming, and if there are any sensitive questions or questions that they would feel comfortable answering, they would like pull out of the study or make a more informed decision. We also have solutions around viewing risk of a study, not from an individual perspective, but from a community's perspective, because some of the studies don't, it's not all, more often than not, some of the studies, the large scale development projects that happen don't affect the individuals themselves only. Sometimes some of these harms, let me call them social harms, are spread to the community. For example, we have a lot of cash transfer projects in Kenya where like researchers come and randomly distribute cash to people and see whether cash makes people make better decisions. And while the intention is good, sometimes this causes a lot of frictions within the society, especially for the groups that don't make to the study, or people who are assigned to the control group. And these social harm spreads to the community, and it's now not a matter of like an individual being affected by research, but the entire society. And so we have suggestions around like viewing risks not from an individual's perspective, but from a community's point of view. But all these solutions that I've spoken about, and all these debates around how to improve the ethics of development research, often like the voices of the participants or the preferences of the participants and the societies they belong to are often missing. Like it's usually researchers sitting down, or experts sitting down somewhere and using maybe the Bellman principles to try and come up with solutions to address some of these challenges. And little has been done to understand like what participants want. Like, for example, when you're talking about ethical research, when you're talking about respectful research, what does that mean from the participants' perspective? And at Busara, we are set to try and correct that. We want to focus on participants themselves. We don't want to perpetuate the same problems where, okay, we are trying to improve the respectfulness of our research, and we're just sitting at the office and trying to determine like what would be respectful or not. So we want to focus on participants themselves, like talking to them, understanding their preferences, understanding like what they want from research projects, what the expectations are they aligned with the expectations of the researcher, and all that stuff. And this well summarized by Professor Humphreys, like saying that there's some sort of disconnect between formal IRB processes and the ethical issues that citizens care about, or participants care about. And that's the sort of disconnect, or that's the gap that we are trying to bridge with this agenda on participant voice first. We want to go there, talk to participants, understand their preferences, see what has worked, what has not worked, what they would wish to see from researchers, and just co-create solutions with them. And as a solution to these gaps, we have sought to undertake an agenda on what we call empirical ethics. And this empirical ethics is all about, one, the solutions that have been put forth as of today, or as of now. Are they what participants want? Do they feel the same about the intended outcomes of these solutions, as well as try to understand like what more could researchers do to ensure that research is more respectful. And to start off this, we conducted like in-depth interviews with 20 participants from our subject pool. Busara maintains a subject pool of like around a participant pool, not subjects, participant pool of around like 80,000 participants. And these ideas were augmented with 4 FGD sessions. And we sought just to understand like what participants think about the current research processes. What do they think about what researchers are doing right now, as well as trying to understand like what they would want researchers to improve on. And one thing we found that like almost all the participants say that when they decide to join or to participate in a research study, they usually come there as like community spokespeople, like they're on behalf of the community, and they are there to speak on behalf of the people they've left behind. And this tells us that participants want to be involved in research in meaningful ways. And this has come up in previous sessions that have been held in this summit, where researchers need to do more to involve participants in decision making, especially when designing interventions or deciding which problem to address. We believe that participants are the experts in their own lives, so it will be good if researchers consult with the stakeholders, the participants themselves, the people we seek to serve, and involve them in research in meaningful ways. The other thing is that they want researchers to share results. That is something that came out strongly. And that was one of the things that they are not happy about with the current research processes. But they feel research at the moment is sort of this extractive process where researchers just come, ask questions, and publish papers, advance their careers, and that's it. They feel that they're not benefiting in ways that they expected. Most of them say that they come to they participate in studies so that they can learn something, take it back to their community and share with their community members. But results have not been forthcoming so far. And they came out strongly to say that, yeah, researchers need to change their ways and try as much as possible to share results of the studies that but people have invested time in. And lastly is around consenting processes. Like participants want researchers to improve consenting processes. So one of the things that we did was to ask participants about the any negative experiences that they've experienced within as they participated in research. Not only Busara, any research, in most low-income areas in Kenya, we have a lot of NGOs working in those areas, trying to improve people's lives. And people have participated in a lot of research studies. And one thing that causes negative experiences from what we heard from the participants was that some surveys like have sensitive questions, and researchers don't make this explicit at the beginning of the study. That is, they spend little time trying to make participants understand what the study is all about. And participants like said that they would prefer researchers to spend a little bit more time trying to make them understand what the study is all about, and if there are any sensitive questions, then to make the participants aware of this. Given these results from the qualitative study, we did a small quantitative study on sharing results. So we had this project where Busara was working with one of the telecom internet telecoms providers in Kenya, Safaricom, and Kenya Forest Service. We conducted like a qualitative study and some quantitative study on how we can help or how communities can be empowered to protect forests that are around the communities. And we use this study to pilot the impact of sharing results with participants on perceived ethical practice. And most important for us was whether participants felt empowered or they felt respected. And so we did like that small study with 19 participants, and we found that like sharing results with participants makes them significantly more likely to say that they were treated respectfully, and significantly less likely to find it difficult to speak in community meetings. So just sharing the results of the study, what you found out after doing the analysis, made like participants feel more respected, and they also felt more empowered to speak about issues to do with forest conservation. And the other finding is that there's no significant impact on the desire to recommend Busara. Like, Busara is a research firm, and we do like research studies over and over again. And they're likely to change something in their lives as a result of the findings or their motivation to conserve the forest. And this finding is interesting because it's a relative finding, because the desire to recommend Busara, their motivation to conserve the forest, and their motivation to change something in their lives was really high. So sharing results not having significant impact on this already high empowerment and desire to recommend Busara was like a positive finding for us. So this is some sort of like some exploratory work just to figure out like whether sharing results has any impact on perceived respect and perceived ethical practice from researchers. And we aim to build on this work with a second feedback study. And in this feedback study, which is still in the design phase, we want to try and investigate what changes in research processes bring about perceived ethical practice. Remember earlier I spoke about like participants wanting researchers to do more on consenting. They want researchers to share results, and they want to be involved in research in more meaningful ways. So in this study, we are hoping to test some of the changes that we co-created with them. So after doing the qualitative study and also the exploratory quantitative study, we spoke to a couple of participants again, just to see like how can we make these research processes better. And in this study, we sort of like to improve and generate more knowledge around this. And one of the things that we want to do is to investigate what consent design has the most positive impact on felt ethical practice. And for the consent, we want to improve both the attention, like make sure that participants are reading the consent and it's easy to understand. So we're just going to test these like major changes in how we present the consent to participants, how we present information in a way that is easy to understand and to synthesize from the participants' perspective. We also want to investigate what feedback content has the most positive impact on felt ethical practice. So with this, we just want to understand what the participants want to do with the results that we share. Like, what exactly do they want to do? And then after understanding that, then we can always frame the results in a way that helps them achieve their objective. And then we will continue exploring the preferences and priorities of research participants when it comes to practice, to ethical practice in research. Like, what do they want? What improvements do they want to see which parts of the research process do they want researchers to do more? Is it the design phase? Is it the interpretation of results, whichever? So in this study also we'll continue exploring their preferences and try to generate more knowledge around this, so that like as researchers make decisions, they know like what participants want, and they make sure that all the decisions that they make are grounded on the realities of the people they're interacting with. And to do all this, we have like a formal agenda on ethical research at Busara. And in this agenda, we will combine like past learnings, what has been done before around this, together with new studies to deeply understand what participants want. And after this, we will co-create tests and disseminate changes to research processes that are aimed at improving participant welfare and upholding dignity, because we believe that as a human, everybody has dignity. It's something that people cannot take away from a human being. So we will, in this agenda, we just generate knowledge around like what participants really want. And our biggest objective here is to ensure that like researchers have empirical information or empirical evidence on the preferences of participants. So as they make decisions on what to do in their research, they know what participants want. So that is the kind of change that we want to make in the development research, where we generate more knowledge around participant preferences, and then researchers can use this knowledge to make better decisions for their projects or their studies. And this agenda will be governed by several core questions. And one of them, I've spoken about it, is like just participant perceptions. Like, how do our participants perceive research? What are their expectations? Like, what do they want from research? Like, what is their thought process as they decide to participate in a study? Like, what goes through them and what motivates them? Why are they joining? And then after understanding that, together with them, we can discuss about like how we can improve the research processes so that we can improve the experience. At the moment, the experience is sort of mixed. They're happy about some of the things that researchers are doing, that researchers are taking interest in their lives, but again, they feel like research is sort of extractive at the moment. They're not getting what they want. The expectations are not being met. And part of this agenda is to make sure that as researchers do as much as possible to meet the expectations of the participants. And again, all these results or all the answers to these questions will be disaggregated by different like demographic groups and geographies. At the moment, we are starting this in Kenya, but in future, we hope to replicate these studies in Nigeria, India, like South Asia, mostly in the global south, and see like how these experiences differ across different groups, and the solutions, how they differ across different groups, so that we can provide researchers with like a greater picture of what's happening. And then we shall develop a framework that will help researchers and anyone to put like, we shall develop like best practices around this to help researchers and anyone who's planning to do any research projects, to help them like make better decisions and help them to make their studies like more respectful. We just want to make sure that every time there's an interaction between researchers or NGOs and participants, we always leave them better off than we found them. We want to make sure that the language you use the information we share empowers people, doesn't make them feel less of themselves. So this agenda will span for the next 3 years. So we started it sometime in August last year until like 2025, where we will seek to comprehensively answer these core questions by conducting multiple studies, both like using qualitative studies, quantitative and experimental approaches, to ensure that we are amplifying the voices of participants well within ethical debates and ensure that we are changing development research for the better. And the issues I've spoken about are issues that like affect any person who does research. Every researcher, I don't think there's any researcher who sets to do a research study which does more harm than good. So we welcome collaborators. Anyone wants to collaborate with us on this. If you have any feedback on this agenda, if you're interested in discussing or supporting or participate, you can contact me through this email address. My email address is joel.mumo@busaracenter.org. I share this slide so that you can get like and also we have like blue papers. We've written a blue paper around this agenda, which I'll share with the slides, so you can get like a good understanding of the agenda, where we are coming from and what we are planning for the next 3 years. So if you feel like this is something that interests you or something you wish to contribute to, please feel more than welcome to contact me and we can have a discussion around it. So to get us started, we have like a couple of studies lined up. And these studies will measure these will be around these 4 major areas. One is shared constructs of research ethics. So we are planning to do a study around that, where we want to compare whether how the key stakeholders in research define certain terms is uniform or is comparable. Like, for example, there are some words that are usually used a lot when talking about research, ethical research. For example, you talk about vulnerable population. We are talking about sensitive questions. We just want to see whether the meaning of these concepts is shared across all the stakeholders in the research process. That is, maybe the people at the IRBs or academics filling out the IRBs, and most importantly, the people that we seek to serve, whether we have a common understanding of these concepts. The other one is meaningful feedback and dialogue. I want to see whether, participants want to receive results from studies, and they also want to give feedback on these results. And also researchers want to share these results, but this has not been happening. There's this, participants want researchers to share results, researchers want to share, but in reality it doesn't happen. Like, if you talk to most people who have participated in research, they've never heard about the results. They never know what happened to the information they gave. So, and that's we just want to do a study around this to see like what's happening, what are some of the barriers that exist, and see how we can improve the situation. And then we will continue building on relevant constants. We want to make sure that people are not like agreeing to participate in studies without enough information to make a good judgment. And then lastly, we want to develop like we'll have these vignettes on ethical dilemmas, and these will be drawn from like real studies where we are going to examine whether there is a shared categorization of whether a decision is ethical or not amongst participants, researchers, and IRB staff. So we are going to have this vignettes where we explain a situation where this situation represents an ethical dilemma, like something that is not clear whether it's ethical to do or not, and take this scenario through IRB staff, researchers or academics, and participants, and to see whether there's a shared categorization. We just want to understand and make sure that all these stakeholders in this process are on the same page. And like I said, we are exploring more ideas around this as we speak to participants. We shall add more strategies that will be aimed at like generating more knowledge around what participants want, so that like people, researchers specifically, can have this knowledge about what people want. And if we know what people want, then it'll be easy for researchers to be able to make better decisions. So the agenda is all about, just to summarize, the agenda is all about bridging this gap between researchers and participants, in the sense that we want to make sure that any decisions that researchers do or make for their studies or whatever, when they're designing a study, it's based on the experiences of the people they seek to serve, and that will be the core of this agenda. And yeah, I'll pause there for now and like answer any questions from or comments, or get any comments from the audience. I know this is like most of us have done research before, whether it's experimental or market research, and maybe you've come across some of these issues. So I'll be more than happy to hear from you and answer any questions that you may have around this work that you're doing at Busara.
Yeah, okay.
Just speak freely.
Okay. Joel, I have a question. This is a great, my name is Dennis Whittle. This is a great presentation. And thank you. It's so interesting to see the findings. I'm interested in kind of the personal resistance you've gotten from researchers, your own experience of, do people think, come on, Joel, this is ridiculous. This is not serious. You're kind of interfering with our work, or are they encouraging to you? Could you tell us a little bit about your own personal experience doing this?
Absolutely. I have faced some resistance from researchers because, as we all know, like most of the researchers that work in the global south are from the global north, and most of the studies that are done in the global south are just studies borrowed from the global north, and we try to contextualize them for the global south. And sometimes we've had this back and forth between me and researchers, and my hypothesis is that like the incentives currently for most for most of them is like career advancement, and that's what's usually most concerning to them. Like, is the study more robust? Is we introducing biases to their study? And when, for example, when you try to suggest something like, participants want an extended consent, they want you to tell them more about the study procedures. The pushback has always been, if we tell them that, they are going to change how they're going to answer my questions because they know what I want and all that stuff. So just give them some sort of like vague information about the study, and just to protect the integrity of the study. And while from a design perspective, that could be a good reason, but sometimes when they make these decisions, some of them come back to haunt them. Like, for example, if you're withholding information about study procedures from participants, and then they later come across like really intrusive questions, then that affects your study, even if you didn't expect that. So yeah, I've faced a lot of pushback from researchers. Them just trying to say like, oh, this has been done, and the argument is usually this was done. I've had this conversation. This has been done in the USA. It has worked. Yeah, why can't it work in Kenya, for example? And yeah, but you try as much as possible to make them understand like the context is different, and like how people think in the global south might not be the same as how people think in the global north. And I think it's really important that we generate this knowledge for researchers to know that while some of the decisions they make might make sense from a design perspective, might end up being like more harm than good to participants. And we hope that by generating this information, knowledge, and this evidence, we might be able to reduce these pushbacks. People say that,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I see that we have a question in the chat. It's from Clara Higgins from, Catholic Relief Services. And she asks, I see that more we think through consent on data sharing, archival, etc., the more complex and completely irrelevant the language in our consent form becomes. Any examples of how consent forms can be meaningful and in line with GDPR, etc.? Also, we revisit the second question. Are there methods that stick out to you, Joel, as getting to the right element of co-design tools, community participation, reflect community priorities, and include communication back, or don't even need to go back since the results don't leave? I'll leave the chat up on the screen. I know it's a little bit tiny.
Yeah, I know I said that I could hear, but like, let me see whether I can read from the chat. Okay. Yeah. So on the first question, I think, and even for most people, when it comes to consenting to stuff, like for example, when you're downloading like a new application, or you're doing, like, most people don't usually read through all that text that is usually put there for people to read. And for the meaningful consent that I'm talking about is to ensure that we are presenting the information in such a way that it's easy. We're not taking away from like the content of the consent and what we need to tell the participants, but maybe like how we present it needs to change a little bit. We want to just change like how we design the consent, like keep the information that is required, but put it in a way that it's more easy to synthesize, and in ways that people can relate with. And it's been conversations that something that we've been thinking through a lot, because most of the consent studies that we've seen have always turned out either null, or researchers are not finding the best way to do this. And it's something that we are thinking about, and we have like this consortium of researchers that we are having conversations around like how to make consent more meaningful, I don't have a concrete answer right now on the first question on like how best we can make consents more meaningful. And by making them more meaningful, I don't mean like by removing some information or making them less informative, but just presenting them in a way that is easy to synthesize. On the second question, just trying to understand the second question.
Thanks, Joel. I can jump in. Your answers have been great. I'm
sure.
just wondering if there's like a method that you think is really embodies what needs to happen to address some of these barriers and imbalances. I feel like we're sometimes inventing new participatory methods that are supposed to solve all of our problems. I'm not looking for that, but are there processes or methods that you hold up as kind of our best approach currently? Thanks.
So I think the best method is the feedback loop, where you involve participants all the way, like from the beginning to the end. Like we have this continuous loop of feedback with the community that you seek to serve, like talking to people about what problems, for example, that they want researchers to focus on, and even co-creating interventions with them, and then speaking to them about the results and the interpretation to see whether you're getting it correctly or whether that's what resonates with them. So it's sort of like the feedback loop is one of the best methods that I think people need to adopt in their research. So we have another question of what examples have you seen of organizations doing a great job sharing findings and results with communities? Now that's a problem because for the people I've spoken to, no one like seems to recall any researcher sharing results, and I don't know of any, especially from like the organizations that I've interacted with. I don't know of any organization that like actively or continuously gives or shares findings with participants. It's always researchers asking questions, getting the data, analyzing, publishing paper, and then coming back again during the next cycle to collect data. So I think I don't have good examples right now because, like I said, for the participants that I spoke to, no one seems to recall researchers sharing results with them on a continuous manner. Like even if it's sharing results, it's usually sharing results as part of the study design, but not proactively like sharing results for in any research project that you do. So I don't have any good examples of any organizations doing that at the moment, and that's what we hope to get more research organizations to do, to share these results. Don't extract information and leave the participants without anything. I don't know whether I've answered your second question. Okay. Any other question, comment? Anything you think that we need to also add to this? Something else you think we need to get more input from participants that you feel like researchers have not been doing a great job at? That's also.
Yeah, I'll jump in again.
Yeah.
The failure to give participants the results of the research is really inexcusable. I mean, it's grotesquely unethical. It's short-sighted. If community members don't hear about the results of their studies, they're not likely to encourage their friends to participate in other studies. It is wrong on so many different dimensions. And it's not that difficult to do. And I have seen this done in a couple of cases. I saw it one place in, I think, Congo, where the researchers came through with a motorcycle and a screen and did a little presentation. And it was a nighttime thing for the village, and everybody came out and everybody had fun. And it was actually a generative rather than an extractive thing for the village and for the community. And that cost very little. It generated a ton of goodwill. The communities next door said, hey, when are you going to come do a study with us? And so it turned this extractive approach into a much more generative approach. And it's not that difficult to do. So I encourage you to push on that front. And if you need help from any of the rest of us, let us know. We'll back you up.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Yeah, and I agree. Even for the case where researchers decide to withhold information about the study, especially in the consenting bit for the fear of biasing the results. I was also like speaking to the participants, they say, okay, sometimes I agree to participate in a study, and down the line, I just come across very personal questions that I have no incentive to answer truthfully, because I don't know why the researcher is asking these questions, and I feel like they're really intrusive. And if by trying to prevent bias in your study leads to you getting incorrect data or data that is not accurate, then I don't think there's a case for withholding this information. It's better of like people to trust and understand like why you're doing whatever you're doing, so that they can buy into your research and give you accurate data. And this is something that people said explicitly. If for example, I find these sensitive questions, I don't have the incentive to answer them accurately, because I don't know why the researcher is asking these questions. I don't know how it's going to help me as a person. So I think, both on the feedback and researchers explaining what they're doing or why they're doing it. And then I think that's something that researchers need to do more about. And I hope the next 3 years will generate enough evidence and knowledge and to help push these and help like people adopt good practices. So yeah, we have another question from Rebecca. We haven't published any guides with best practices yet. We just beginning the agenda. We are in the phase of data collection and analyzing data and trying to understand like what people want, but eventually this is one of the outcomes that we want, just to publish guidelines on the best practices when interacting with community members. Yeah. I'll share these slides on the Hoover app. So we have like additional resources to read about, like the agenda blue paper, which gives like a comprehensive outline of what the agenda will encompass, as well as some of the studies that we've done. And yeah, Busara, at Busara we do research and advisory. We work with organizations and researchers to advance and apply behavioral science in the pursuit of poverty alleviation. So my why for doing all this is to make sure that we are actually alleviating poverty. We are making decisions that are based on the experiences of the people that we seek to serve, and ensure that like we are having meaningful impact, not just generating knowledge which cannot be applied to improve like people's lives. So yeah, I'm happy to chat with anyone of you who's interested in this agenda. I'll share these slides. You can get my email address. You can chat, set up meetings, discuss about the things that we can do to ensure that we are upholding the dignity of the people we seek to serve. So researchers, one is we can collaborate on projects. For example, if we have this cool project or this cool idea or this important idea that you want to test or gather more information on, we can collaborate on that. Maybe look for funding together, share this, like discuss ideas, methods, publish the work together. So there are so many ways that you can collaborate. And yeah, I'm open to hearing from you after this. And I hope this was helpful. And thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to talking to you again about this, and we continue like pushing for better research practices. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel. We've given our Thank you to all our virtual and in-person participants. I will I'll have this email if you guys didn't get it down when the session ends. Thank you again, Joel. And
yeah.
you have a wonderful rest of your day. Good luck with your organization.
Thank you. Bye.
Joel.